The dove on the window ledge clattered its wings and took off again, swooping towards the pavement opposite the bingo hall, and almost landing on the foot of a man in green trousers who was standing in the shadow of a shop front. So that evening at the factory, continued Leonora, Tony had been working on the Well of Wishes. It was a very elaborate piece of machinery with a secret compartment. A secret compartment for Lily to hide in. The idea was that at the very beginning of the show, Tony would drop a coin into the well and wish for a beautiful assistant, and then she'd appear. At the end, as a little joke, she'd drop in the coin and wish for them both to disappear, and off they'd go. So he was trying to perfect this, doing the trick over and over again. And Lily was tired. She was working as a nurse at the local hospital during the day, and she wanted to get off home. They had one of their rows, there was a great deal of shouting, and during the course of it, the coin that Tony had been using to drop into the well was hurled across the room by Lily, landing somewhere unreachable. And Tony, trying to patch up the argument, said he'd give her a very, very special coin for the trick. And he went to the factory safe and took out the purse of money that he'd earned from that first ever magic show. It was 2 shillings and 6pence, all in threepences, 10 coins in all. His magical money, said Stuart, barely breathing. He gave Lily the purse, and at that moment the siren sounded. There had already been a couple of false alarms that day, but Tony was an air raid warden, and he took his duties seriously. He went into the main factory to make sure that all the workers entered the shelter, and then he returned to the workshop. Lily wasn't there. Her coat was still on the peg, and her shoes and handbag were beside it on the floor. So he knew she hadn't left. He called and searched. The air raid warning was real this time. He could hear bomber engines overhead and the clatter of incendiary bombs dropping outside the factory. Tony kept searching. He looked in all the secret compartments of all the stage illusions. He shouted Lily's name. And then he smelled smoke. An incendiary had landed in the guttering. On the roof, he climbed up through a skylight to try and dislodge it, but a fire was already taking hold. He hurried back to the workshop and searched again, desperately, frantically. Smoke was beginning to fill up the factory, and he could hear the fire brigade approaching, bells ringing. And then he saw something on the floor. It was the purse. He picked it up, and something made him count the threepences inside. There were only 9 left. The smoke was so thick by now that Tony could hardly see. He started to grope his way across the workshop towards the Well of Wishes, and then he must have lost consciousness, because the next thing he remembered was waking up outside the factory. He'd been rescued by a fireman, and Horten's miraculous mechanisms was ablaze. Every stick of it burned. No trace of Lily was ever found. So, children, it wasn't that Lily was killed necessarily, because we don't exactly know. All they know is that she was never ever found. Right. So now we've got this new character, Lily, that had entered teeny tiny Tony Horten's life, and we'll find out maybe a bit more about her tomorrow. But I don't know about you, but I'm a bit hungry after all this story reading. I think I might have some of her. I hope Tia won't mind. But I think I'll have some of her sweeties over there. So I'll just hang on. I can hear some eating. So what's going on? Teeny tiny. And who's that? Who's that next to him? Lily. They've eaten all the cake.